Fellow Federation members, we welcome today Senator Cynthia Lummis. Let me just talk a little bit about Cynthia Lummis. She was sworn to Congress in 2021 as the first woman to serve as U.S. Senator from the great state of Wyoming. Her public service did not begin in 2021, though. Senator Lummis was first elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 2008, where she was a founding member of the House Freedom Caucus. Before her service in D.C., Senator Lummis spent 8 years as Wyoming State Treasurer and 14 years as a member of the Wyoming State House and Senate. She has a daughter, Annalise, a son-in-law, Will Cole, and 3 grandsons, Gus, Al, and Bennett. And today she joins us. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Senator Lummis, for speaking with us today. I'm Valerie Pfundstein, and I'm the chairwoman of the Literacy and Education Committee for the National Federation of Republican Women. Now, our committee's focus on literacy encompasses recommended reading for our members and children alike, all the while fostering conservative, patriotic American values, which brings us to your book, We Do Not Consent. It's a compilation of essays by 9 fellow senators. So that brings us to our first question, Senator. What has been your most impactful motivation for contributing to We Do Not Consent?
I was sitting around with some fellow senators, Valerie, when we were informed that President Trump had been indicted in New York and then later found guilty of in an absolute sham trial. You know, these were charges that were brought even though multiple prosecutors had previously decided there's no case here. This is way beyond a statute of limitations. This is ridiculous. And yet Alvin Bragg chose to bring suits against him, as did other prosecutors in New York, for the stated reason that they want to bring down Donald Trump. It doesn't have anything to do with an act of criminality. It has to do with their complete animosity towards Donald Trump. This is not American justice. So in our frustration about how we could be responsive, I decided to lead an effort to have senators write chapters in a book about how the Biden-Harris administration has conducted itself, why we're in the mess we are in because of their leadership. And we chose the title, We Do Not Consent, because it comes from the Declaration of Independence. Government derives its powers from the consent of the governed. And not only its powers, but its just powers. Government is no longer exercising its power justly, as is clear from the manner in which New York State is prosecuting President Trump. So we do not consent to be governed unjustly. And we are using that title. 9 senators have contributed chapters, and they're significant senators writing significant chapters about the very subjects they know best. Ted Cruz writing about the crisis on our southern border. Dr. Roger Marshall, a physician from Kansas, writing about the fentanyl crisis that also has developed as a result of the open border. Mike Lee, who clerked at the U.S. Supreme Court, writing about the prosecution of President Trump. Former Supreme Court and Attorney General of Texas, John Cornyn, writing about the weaponization of the Justice Department. Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, writing about the culture wars and her question of Ketanji Brown about what is a woman. She was the one who asked the question, which prompted the incredulous response of, I'm not a biologist. We're all seeing things that astound us. And as senators, we're viewing it in the same real time that members of the National Federation of Republican Women are seeing it. So we've chosen to write on this. Here is the book. It is available on the NRSC website, National Senatorial Republican Committee, or National Republican Senatorial Committee, NRSC. It's under We Do Not Consent 2024.com. We Do Not Consent 2024.com. It costs $60. All of the proceeds go to the NRSC to help elect a Republican majority in the US Senate in 2024. So we can help President Trump fulfill his agenda. And I'm telling you, Valerie, it is so exciting what he plans to do. I'm just over the moon. I had a chance to have dinner last night with one of the most significant members of his inner circle and talking about the plan that President Trump intends to start his 2025 presidency with. And I was just so proud. I was so thrilled to hear their approach to taking the next steps in making America great again. They're going to hit the ground running. They're going to develop teams to work on the key intractable issues in our nation, working together side by side between the Trump administration, the US House and the US Senate, so we can really move significant legislation through in 2025. It's incredible. I'm just completely buoyed by this opportunity that we have in front of us in November. And I want to thank members of the National Republican Women to help make this possible. In my experience over the years with the National Federation of Republican Women, you're instrumental in getting out the vote, in turnout, in information, in keeping the American people informed and aware. And your efforts are so substantial, and we sometimes forget how significant having the National Federation of Republican Women members in place and ready to go when a presidential race of this caliber, this significance for our nation is upon us. So I want to thank all of the members of the National Federation of Republican Women for the work you do.
Thank you. And we are energized. We want to be there to help. We're already on the ground in battleground states. But I'd like to listen to hear your opinion. I know in your introduction, you wrote about a couple core issues that you were very concerned about. One was illegal immigration and the influx of terrorists. Can you expand upon that some more?
Well, we do know that over 300 known terrorists have crossed our border illegally. And we don't know how many known terrorists have crossed our border illegally and not gotten caught. But our own FBI has testified in front of Congress that the national threats are at a high point and that we have to be ever vigilant. Well, we wouldn't be in this position if the Biden-Harris administration had protected our southern border. The US Constitution provides that the duties of the federal government are limited, and the powers of the states and the people are unlimited. But what's happening is one of the enumerated powers in the Constitution, that is the responsibility of the federal government is to secure our borders. And so fundamentally, the Biden-Harris administration has flaunted the Constitution, failed the American people, failed their duties under the U.S. Constitution. We know that somewhere between 10 and 20 million illegal people are in this country, and some of them are terrorists. We know from a 2022 video that Iran posted that they are in serious efforts to assassinate Donald Trump. Also Mike Pompeo, our former Secretary of State, and also other key leaders that were involved in eliminating Soleimani when he left Iran and visited Iraq, thereby allowing us to take out someone who had killed hundreds of Americans, hundreds. So it's absurd that Kamala Harris, in her role as the border czar, has flung the border open, wide open, let terrorists come in here undetected, and a few have been interdicted, but many have been undetected. And they're here in our country plotting the assassination of our leaders. I am shocked that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have taken the attitude that they have towards the illegal entry of people from all over the world into our country.
Wow. And you know what? I appreciate you using the words enumerated powers, because our federal government was not formed to be all powerful. It was actually formed for quite the other reason, to limit the power of the federal government.
Absolutely, Valerie, you're right.
And we too often we forget that, and we see the power grab in DC. So how can we make a difference on that front?
Well, there's one easy way. It's the easiest way you can possibly imagine. Vote for Donald Trump. Vote for Donald Trump. He gets it. He knows that the federal government's powers were intended by our framers to be limited. And he wants to return to a constitutional government. He wants to empower individual people. The amazing thing about Donald Trump is he may be a billionaire, but I've never met someone of his caliber who really gets the average American more. He understands, for reasons that shouldn't be, but he understands the plight of the everyday American. He understands that people are making choices at grocery stores that they didn't have to make before because prices are so high. He understands how people plan their trips differently because gasoline prices are so high. He understands the choices that middle-class Americans, everyday Americans, are having to make about, can I afford to send my child to a private school that's not woke, or do I have to send them to a public school and then carefully monitor the woke activities that are indoctrinating our children? It's an America we've never seen before. It's one that's not comfortable. It makes me uneasy to see the choices that young parents and middle-class Americans are having to make these days because of the failures of our leaders in government. So Donald Trump gets it. The people he has designated to help him prepare to once again assume the presidency and quickly begin to right the ship, it is phenomenal, Valerie. I'm so excited about the future if Donald Trump is president once again.
We share your enthusiasm. Believe me, we do. Now, I also know that you sit on the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. So you'll be able to share with our listeners the importance of not printing money and
Oh,
causes
God.
of inflation. Can you do that a little bit for us?
Absolutely. Well, there was a 22-month period, Valerie, during COVID, where the United States printed more money than had ever been printed in the history of our country since its beginning. Now, that's hard to contemplate, but we have printed since the financial crisis of 2009, $8 trillion minimum. That it really is not backed by anything but the full faith and credit of the United States. Now, that's something, because we as a nation have pledged that we will pay interest on our national debt. So I don't want to discount the fact that we're good, we're true to our word. We're going to pay interest on our national debt. The problem is the interest on our national debt is so high, and we have accumulated so much national debt that we're spending more on interest now, interest payments, than we spend on national defense. And when our budget requires that much of our budget to meet our obligations to pay interest on the national debt, we're crowding out things that we could be spending money on to make America safe and secure through our military, to make sure there are never benefit cuts to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. We're putting those other expenditures in jeopardy. And it is extremely ill-advised.
Absolutely. And we also have an issue of corporations getting too involved in the federal governments and with political parties. And I know you're on the Commerce Committee, Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. I know that that's an issue that you guys are addressing, holding these big tech companies accountable. Can you elaborate a little bit on your work in that regard?
Yeah, two things come to mind. One is that young children, have exposure on social media to advertising that literally makes them feel bad about themselves, that they're too fat, that their noses aren't perfect, that their friends are laughing at them because they, I don't know,
Don't have the
aren't,
best sneakers.
yeah, they're not, and they're not girls that are 5'9" and weigh 110 pounds. It's an unattainable perfection that is expected of young people at a time when they should be having fun, having friends, having their minds expanded by the tremendous array of information that's available to them, and to have them distracted by a focus on negative body image, especially for girls, both teen and preteen, is highly disappointing. And these social media companies are specifically allowing algorithms that cater to targeting these young girls. It just socially irresponsible. So we're working on that, and I can't say enough good things about Senator Marsha Blackburn. She's been a leader in this space, and I'm very proud to serve with her. Another area that we need to look at in the Commerce Committee is the application of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as it is applied to corporate policy. It sounds good, but the problem with the word equity, as it is propounded by the advocates of DEI, is that they want equity in outcomes, not equity in opportunity. And when you want to level the playing field in a way that disadvantages people who are motivated by personal achievement and success and hard work, and level the playing field for that person, the person that is motivated by high achievement and effort and work and making themselves a better person. And then level the playing field for a person whose personal attributes are exactly the opposite. It's a race to the bottom. It's to make sure that if we're going to be equitable, we're all equitably unsuccessful and all providing the minimum amount of effort to be rewarded in the workplace. It's un-American, Valerie. It's just un-American. And yet that is what DEI expects of people. And then we have these unrealistic environmental issues that are expected of large corporations that drives them to reject an all of the above energy portfolio. We need more energy. And nobody produces more clean energy than the United States. So what we're doing is driving countries like Europe towards buying less clean energy from Russia. So the environment is dirtier as a consequence of that. And Russia uses the revenue from that to attack Ukraine. So our own policies are undermined by this radical environmental policy. The air is dirtier because it's coming from dirty Russian gas instead of clean American gas. And Ukraine gets attacked with the revenues because we won't provide our clean energy to countries like Germany. It is so ill-advised, counterintuitive. There's a lack of common sense. And so much of what President Trump's agenda is about is just based on common sense. So we can return to a common sense society based on constitutional principles if we support President
That'd be
Trump.
great. And you bring up the agenda. I know the agenda that shall not be named. She just came out yesterday saying that she'd like to remove the qualification of a college education from government jobs. And you were talking about the DEI hires. That's about it, in a nutshell. We're willing to remove all qualifications so that I guess people will get jobs upon raffles or lotteries instead of by qualifications. That's a shame. So we also have your environment, though. I mean, you're from Wyoming, right? So we need to protect our environment, and there's ways to do it responsibly. Do you have any suggestions on the energy front and the environment front that we should be undertaking in a Trump presidency? The next one should be undertaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Wyoming really has been a leader in carbon capture and sequestration. It allows us to continue to use hydrocarbon energy, oil and coal, in a way that allows us to take the carbon that's produced from that and inject it underground and store it there. And Wyoming has been a leader in finding underground cavities or contained rock formations underground that can store and trap carbon without it escaping. And there's other high quality environmental power plants that have been built in Wyoming. The Dry Creek plant up by Gillette, Wyoming, was, when it was turned on, the most environmentally friendly coal-fired power plant in the world. And it was so clean that they didn't even want to show the EPA how clean they could produce coal-fired power, because this administration wants every single coal-fired power plant in the United States to have the maximum attainable control technology. Well, what's attainable is expensive and new. And to retrofit some of these older plants would be cost prohibitive. But what it shows is if we allow our country to continue to innovate the way we always have, that we come up with better ways to make our air cleaner, to make our water cleaner, to make our food safer. It is frequently lost on our federal government that our innovators have this capability and that we should allow them to innovate before we regulate.
Absolutely. And we have a bright future ahead with other congressmen and congresswomen like Senator Lummis. We're in great shape, and we do appreciate you joining us. One last question. Now, you saw how painless this interview was. One last question. Who would you like to challenge to be interviewed by the NFRW, the Women of the Right? Who would you like to challenge, Senator Lummis?
Well, I don't know if you've ever interviewed Vivek Ramaswamy, but I'm telling you, he's so impressive in terms of his understanding of the role that the federal government should assume under a Trump presidency. He's delightful. He is knowledgeable. He's passionate. And he's the kind of person you kind of want to hang on every word.
Would you like to challenge him?
Is that how it goes here?
That's how it's going to go today. Would you like to make a challenge to Vivek Ramaswamy to be interviewed by the Women on the Right?
Absolutely. So to my dear friend Vivek Ramaswamy, I challenge you to be interviewed by the Women of the Right. And I want to tune into that one. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today with the National Federation of Republican Women. And I'd also like to thank our viewers for tuning in. Ladies, please let us know who you'd like to hear from. We want to know. Thank you so much, Senator Lummis. I want you to have a great day.
Valerie, it's been my pleasure. And thank you for all you do. Again, you're on the battlefield to save America. And I salute you.
Wonderful. Have a great afternoon, everyone.